I was done with the MCU. Project after project, my feelings were getting more resentful. I sometimes cover topics of movies and TV shows that I dislike. That's normal for a YouTuber to do. My last video was even on the DC animated universe not being my cup of tea. But Marvel was one place I hadn't milked when I so easily could. Because, well, I just didn't want to. I did not want to spend the effort into explaining why I hated Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania or Thor: Love and Thunder. You probably share the same thoughts as I do. And going through that ordeal wouldn't have been fun for me. So when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 dropped, I stopped midway through a Star Wars marathon with my friends to go from one theatre in St Kilda to another in Melbourne Central. A mad dash through the rain, as I knew this would be the only chance I would be able to get to see it before it's certainly being spoiled for me over socials. So, as the final credits began to roll, I only had one thing that I knew for certain, and it was that I knew I had to find a way to talk about my love for this film. In a sea of movies that have left me bitter, Guardians stands as my new favourite MCU film, and my third favourite Marvel film behind Spider-Man 2 and Logan. Fuck me, I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians Volume 1. Quill's adventure in space starts with this. In Volume 2, the team's adventure begins with... So Guardians of the Galaxy is for sure known for its pop rock 80s soundtracks and its fun, colourful vibes. For the most part, standing truly on its own amongst the MCU or any other comic book IP, as this precious thing of old and new mashed together, balancing the tone of a fun sci-fi adventure with the heavy undertones of childhood trauma, the likes of which any other MCU film wishes to have. Guardians Volume 3 stands apart in this trilogy by starting with this. When you were here before, the use of Radiohead's acoustic version of Creep was the first tell sign that the tone of this Guardians adventure was going to be a little darker, a little more real and earnest, shifting the focus from Peter Quill, the lead of the previous two entries, to Rocket. As we follow him around as he quietly sings along to the lyrics, once again stealing Peter's Zune, the thought on my mind is James Gunn has taken that natural color grade and camera work from the Suicide Squad and really turned it to 11. And it just works. The amount of energy it has because of the handheld feel to it, we sit 4 feet off the ground as Rocket is almost in his own world, with the lyrics of Creep being seriously on the nose. I don't care if it hurts. I wanna have control. I want a perfect body. I want a perfect soul. Comparing the openings of both volumes 1 and 2 to 3 is important because it's reflective of the entire film. Something that James has perfected is creating the Guardians to be a team ensemble, but also a family. Look at any other team of heroes. They wish they were as united as the Guardians. The Avengers relative to the Guardians is honestly kind of a joke. When Joss wrote for them, they all bickered and hated each other. The team rarely spoke with a sense of earnestness to each other. They keep that energy for Civil War, and Infinity War, it's end of times, so no time for chit chat. There were no times where they would just have scenes like Mantis talking to Quill about loss and how he should deal with it, or Drax sharing his feelings about dancing, something that can be equated with putting yourself out there, which, after loss, can be really, really hard. You can for sure grab some equivalent scenes, but it's not the same. The impact and nuance to this is really, it does have Guardians clearing here. For every few scenes in Avengers stories where they actually act like, normal people, Guardians has 3 to 4 times that are more impactful or reflective of their arc that is just better than just good ad-lib. Across the metric ton of, specifically this word, content, we get small moments from characters like Vision which blow up on TikTok, yet this isn't enough. It doesn't compare to Guardians. Volume 3's entire premise is the team wanting just to save Rocket. It has the aspect of saving the world to it, saving people who can't save themselves because of course, it's a superhero movie, but it doesn't allow that fact to get in the way of real, raw emotion. It doesn't fall into the trap of every trilogy ending piece. going so big it kind of just becomes a mess all around. This is by far the most tight-knit Guardians flick. James was written into so many corners. One of your leads was killed off in a spin-off film that you had no say in. Instead of doing the easy retcon with Gamora and Quill just getting back together like nothing happened, James makes the call to use that as fuel to tell a story of longing and moving on. Something that it actually expands their characters to make the audience really feel for them. The timeline of these movies can be sometimes a little confusing. Disney sometimes doesn't even know themselves. While the movie just only came out, people are roughly estimating that Volume 3 takes place in the year 2026, which, if you're keeping track, puts it 12 years after Volume 1, with Volume 2 taking place that same year. 12 years. Yes, there is a 5-year gap in the middle with that snap situation, but think of who was alive during that time: Rocket and Nebula. The relationship they have has very clearly grown in Volume 3. This type of meticulous detail from James is what sells the huge emotional moments, and Volume 3 is filled to the fucking brim with them. One of the best aspects of this team is this exact fact: 12 years of adventures. And you feel it with them. It's so nice. Nice to know that the man who was the first person to perfect the team ensemble is going to be the guy heading up the next iteration of the Justice League. I love Snyder's films, but his league is nothing compared to the Guardians as a family. Like, I know it's a really unfair comparison, but let's look a lot larger than this. Avengers, we've already discussed, it's not even close. Either Fantastic Four squads? Nope. X-Men, it's mostly a Wolverine trilogy with Charles Xavier kind of vibing and Scott's just there. And let's simplify it. Let's look at genuine families amongst the MCU, like the Ant-Mans. I set that one up for failure. Honestly though, this small tidbit is so necessary to make it clear to you. I could listen to the Guardians just talk amongst themselves because they bounce off each other like no other team in the MCU or the DCEU. There is a genuine sense of love for each member. When Gamora died, Quill lost the love of his life. The team lost a valued member. But it's also worth to note that to Baby Groot, he basically lost his mum. Each person on this team has gone through so much trauma. Quill was the lead. We have seen his. We are connected to him already. Nebula is the daughter of the big bad of the Infinity Saga. We know her upbringing was, rough. Gamora, it's her sister. It applies to her too. Groot literally died. So when each member sees Rocket's past and begins to cry, oh fuck man, it really cuts deep. I do need to move on because Volume 3 does have 1 star. A star that was incapacitated for 75% of its runtime, yet still shined through the most. That was Rocket. Rocket Raccoon. The amazing part about this trilogy is James has written it in such a way that scenes from earlier films that worked on their own now have become 10 times better because it's all so well built up and earned. I think the way Volume 2 ended with Rocket shedding a tear, at the time it's something I just overlooked. But within this arc of 3 volumes, man, this shot just hits way harder now. Compare that to the final shot of Guardians Volume 3, and Rocket is fully able to dance with his family to the tune of Dog Days. Something to note when talking to my editor, CJ, is that
it isn't a coincidence that they picked the physical manifestation of their past trauma before being stable enough, not only as a group, but as individuals, to go their own ways and finally fully overcome all their baggage. And Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine fits this idea perfectly, because not only does it tackle themes of things coming to an end, but it also heavily looks into letting go of the things in your past that are holding you back. In the song, they refer to these as love and longing, but this can easily be read as a stand-in for any past trauma that people might be holding on to.
My TikTok feed for the past few days has just been scenes from the first 2 films. Yeah, I just had to mention that. And Volume 3 sets one thing in stone. I have slept on this trilogy for far too long. Rocket has now become one of, if not my favorite character in the MCU. His story is now complete. The scenes from the previous volumes now just feel fully realized. I just feel so happy to have experienced this. High Evolutionary is a tremendous foe. Outstanding. He's the exact antagonist they needed for this specific story. He isn't sympathetic at all. I fucking hated him. There are words Aussies often use that perfectly describe guys like him. I won't be able to say them for the fear of demonetization, but if you know, you know. And the vindication I got to see the Guardians have a literal face-off with him was just pure catharsis. Finality. There really has never been this feeling in the MCU, and it's weird. My gut says, oh, they'll be back. They have to be. Yet somehow, Every single character has come full circle and completed their arcs set up from Volume 1. When talking about the MCU, we always separate it from a post-Endgame view. That was an ending, and now we have Phase 4 and 5 just kind of being here in this awkward state. We are in a transitional period where we have the overabundance of projects with legacy characters that are just all aiming to set up the next phases of films, even with dead characters getting movies just to set up their siblings being important figures. This almost mathematical approach to storytelling has left many people in a void of ugh and emptiness, where the only things we get out of these projects are a few funny memes and some really sick moments. Yeah, moments. But what are moments when you have to sign up to the MCU conveyor belt of production line process content? The biggest problem with Marvel is a little story concept called an ending. Very rarely do Marvel endings mean anything. The next writer will have a different interpretation of what happened and will just write in whatever they want to make work for their plot to make sense. This is what made 2014-2016 MCU so hard to watch. At the end of each film, characters like Cap or Tony would just be in a totally different headspace or mood in the next film. Iron Man 3 to Ultron to Civil War are, all basically different characters. I like all three versions of Tony, but clearly 3 separate writers. Even when it's the same writer for Cap, I've mentioned this in previous videos, but it still seems disjointed. That is why Guardians is special. Its ending feels not only earned, but like 15 years in the making. Once Dog Days begins to play, the emotions just overtake all sense of thought. This trilogy means so much to me, and I know so many of you. So, thank you to James Gunn and co. You really did make something special.
We're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more video essay content just like this. I've got a ton of things planned and I can't wait to show you guys. For the comment section down below, I'm just really curious on 2 things. 1, what did you think of Volume 3? I'm really interested. And secondly, what are your thoughts on James Gunn writing and directing Superman Legacy? Other than that, thank you to CJ for editing this video and take care and have a great day.